Hi, this is Delma. Welcome back to my channel of Books and Soul. The book that I wanted to speak to you about today is a book that I just finished recently, and it's called Medallions by Zofia Nałkowska. So this is a book that I actually read in Polish. It's a short, tiny little book. It's called Medaliony in Polish, but it's the Medallions in English. It's been translated. And I thought it would be a good idea to talk about it or to share my thoughts with you about this book, or even maybe introduce you to this book if you've never heard of it. Just recently, we commemorated the International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January the 27th. So this book was written by Zofia Nałkowska, who's an amazing Polish writer. She wrote this book because she was actually a member of this special committee set up to investigate Nazi crimes in Poland right after the war. So as a member of this committee, she had this amazing opportunity to meet many people, to speak with the people who either have survived concentration camps in some way or another, survived many of horrible atrocities that they had to go through during the war. She was able to speak to many of the victims, many of the people who witnessed these events, there's a story I think in here or two where she's able to speak to the perpetrators as well. So she gets these direct stories of people who lived through the war, who experienced horrible things, who want to talk about what happened to them. They want to make sure that their stories are heard, and she's the one who writes down these stories, and she puts them in this little collection. So this book is a collection of some of the stories that she hears, of the encounters with these people that she has, and it's a collection of 8 stories in total, so that's why it's so short. 8 stories, very incredible and hard-hitting stories. For example, what I did, I would read a story at a time, just because it's very psychologically and emotionally heavy, so it's a lot to take in. It's very tough to read. So Nałkowska's style in this book, you'll see she writes these stories very simple, very calm, controlled. It almost seems detached from what she's saying, what she's describing. And you'll see that because of this style, these stories have the ability to really hit the reader hard. Without giving you too many details about the stories, the things that I think this book really conveyed to me as I was reading is number one, it makes you ask a lot of questions. It makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes you feel emotionally involved, and then it makes you really question yourself, and it makes you ask very tough questions. So why did this even happen? How could it have happened? How is this even possible? How can we, as human beings, stop things like this from ever happening again? Reading these, following these people's steps and reading about their stories, you also kind of ask yourself, like, how did they even survive this? How did they live day by day in these conditions and in these situations? How was it possible that this was so organized and so rationalized? And like, how could have this even been planned? So after reading this book, the one thing that I know I want to do is to definitely pick up more books on this topic, pick up more books about on history. I know that this book has definitely also sparked this kind of interest in me, and that I want to devote a little bit more of my time to reading more historical nonfiction books and just literature on this subject, or just in general on history. And I'm more interested also in finding out about these people's stories, so like biographies, autobiographies, things like that. So I'm sure you guys will be seeing another video from me shortly, coming out with some ideas that I have for nonfiction books, for history books that I want to read this year. The other thing that struck me when reading this book is that Nałkowska is really great at listening and giving the voice completely to the people that she was interviewing, that she was speaking with. So when you read this book, you almost never hear anything from Nałkowska, any of her comments, any of her thoughts, judgments. She completely gives the stage, or she gives complete space to the people that she's interviewing. So you hear their voices, You hear their stories. She uses quotes, direct quotes. She shows you, she also writes this down, kind of like their emotional state at that point, like what kind of emotions they're going through, how their faces change. There's moments when, for example, I don't know, a person says something difficult, and then they sigh, and it's almost like they're analyzing something in their conscience or inside their hearts, and so she tells you this. So she definitely makes sure that at the forefront you have these people and their words. It's wonderful because she really makes sure that she takes a step back and she doesn't speak, but she lets their voices be heard. One exception maybe would be the last story in this book, which is a little bit more kind of like her analyzing what happened. She looks at like the economic, ideological, political implications of what happened, why it happened, how it happened, kind of looks at some people that were involved. So maybe that story is a little bit more where she comes in and she speaks also as an author. But all the other stories where you have an interview, where you have a conversation, it's completely the person that she is in front of her that, you know, she lets them speak. And that's the person that comes out of the story, and it's their story that is being told, and they are telling that story. And the other thing that, you know, even like I said, this book is really tough to read because she really looks at humanity and how human beings, you know, did this to one another. This is something, you know, that she definitely looks at in this book. It's a recurring theme. And as much as the focus is on humanity and the dark aspects of human nature, what I love is that that's not it. There is hope, and she is able to find these little rays of light and hope in this horrible context. For example, she talks about people who were able to be good and to be heroic, even in spite of the danger that they face. They risk their lives for this, and they risk their lives for others. And in spite of fear and danger that they faced every day, they still made choices and decided to do good things and heroic things in these unthinkable situations or contexts that they were put in. So, for example, she talks about this doctor from Krakow who had patients in a concentration camp, and he was able to save so many people from being put to death or being sent to the gas chamber, because he was using his position as a doctor to help others, because he was taking care of them, or he was buying them more time, and just incredible stories like this. So in spite of this horrible time of darkness for humanity, Nałkowska is still able to look at these moments of where goodness and hope was able to still, you know, have the upper hand and have the final word over all this evil that was around. So I think this book is an essential read for everyone. I highly recommend it to all of you. I think this book is definitely life-changing and just extremely important to read. So that's it for today. That's it for today's video. If you liked this video, if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye!